right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we will be joined in person by Andrew Saberton, the Deputy Executive Director for Management at the UN Population Fund, and he will brief on his recent trip to Afghanistan. And tomorrow, we will be joined in person by Shantanu Mukherjee, the Director of Economic Analysis and Policy Division in the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and Ingo Peterle, the Senior Economic Affairs Officer for the Global Economic Monitoring Branch in the Economic Analysis and Policy Division in DESA. DESA will be launching the World Economic Situation and Prospects Mid-Year Report. The Secretary General is continuing his meetings in Berlin. As you know, he's in Berlin to attend the Ministerial Meeting on Peacekeeping. Right now, he's meeting with Friedrich Merz, the Federal Chancellor of Germany, and they're just starting a press stakeout. Earlier today, he said that he is heartened by the exceptional turnout of ministers from across the globe, representing the full range of peacekeeping partners. Just to let you know, we have an update that more than 130 member states were present, and 74 member states made pledges to support peace operations. The Secretary General added that this meeting comes at a time when, unfortunately, peacekeeping operations are facing serious liquidity problems. He called on all member states to respect their financial obligations, paying their contributions in full and on time. These remarks were made during a joint press conference with the Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs, Johan Wadapul, and Federal Minister of Defense, Boris Pistorius. He noted that he's especially pleased to be in Berlin so soon after the new government took office, and he looks forward to building on our partnership in the time ahead. Mr. Guterres also met today with Ms. Rim Alabali Radovan, Minister for Development and Economic Cooperation of Germany. Tomorrow, he's scheduled to hold discussions with Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the President of Germany, before he departs to Iraq to attend the League of Arab States Summit. Also, during the Peacekeeping Ministerial in Berlin, the United Nations unveiled a new multi-year initiative funded by the Federal Republic of Germany to provide women troops deployed in peace operations with gender-specific protective gear, including ballistic vests and helmets. During an awards ceremony held earlier today during the member states gathering, Nils Hilmer, State Secretary of the German Ministry of Defense, and Atul Khare, Undersecretary General for Operational Support, announced the selection of Fiji, Guatemala, Kenya, Malawi, Malaysia, Mongolia, and Tanzania to receive the equipment, in recognition of their commitment to the Uniformed Gender Parity Strategy and the deployment of women in operational roles. The project, worth €1 million in total, aims to enhance the performance, safety, and security of women peacekeepers in complex and volatile mission environments, and ultimately promote their participation in peacekeeping efforts. Hans Grundberg, the Special Envoy for Yemen, briefed the Security Council this morning and welcomed the announcement on the 6th of May of a cessation of hostilities between the USA and Ansar Allah. He said that this step represents an important and necessary de-escalation in the Red Sea and in Yemen following the resumption on the 15th of March of U.S. airstrikes against targets in Ansar Allah-controlled areas. He said that events in recent weeks, however, have also served as stark reminders that Yemen is ensnared in the wider regional tensions. The attack carried out by Ansar Allah on Ben Gurion Airport on the 4th of May and the subsequent strikes by Israel on Hodeidah Port, Sana'a Airport, and other locations in response represent a dangerous escalation, and that threats and attacks regrettably continue. Tom Fletcher, the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, told council members that the humanitarian situation is deteriorating, and those most in peril are the country's children. Half of Yemen's children, or 2.3 million, are malnourished, he said, and 600,000 of them are severely so. Mr. Fletcher warned that Yemen's 2025 humanitarian response plan is barely 9% funded, less than half of what we received at the same time last year. These shortfalls have very real consequences. He said that we expect pipeline gaps as early as June or July, right when malnutrition numbers will peak. And Mr. Grundberg will speak at the stakeout once he's done in the council, and we'll let you know when that happens. Tom Fletcher briefed the Security Council yesterday afternoon on Gaza and said that Israel is deliberately and unashamedly imposing inhumane conditions on civilians in the occupied Palestinian territory. He said that every single one of the 2.1 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip faced the risk of famine. 1 in 5 face starvation. Mr. Fletcher said that the UN and our partners are desperate to resume humanitarian aid at scale across Gaza, in line with the fundamental principles of humanity, impartiality, independence, and neutrality. But Israel denies this access, placing their objective of depopulating Gaza before the lives of civilians. The Undersecretary General said that for anyone still pretending to be in any doubt, the Israeli-designed distribution modality is not the answer. Among other things, he said, it makes aid conditional on political or military aims, and makes starvation our bargaining chip. He told Israeli authorities, stop killing and injuring civilians, lift this brutal blockade, let humanitarians save lives. And he said to Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups, release all hostages immediately and unconditionally. Stop putting civilians at risk during military operations. And today, our colleagues on the ground at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report that hostilities in Gaza intensified overnight, with an attack by Israeli forces on the European Gaza hospital in Khan Yunis, killing and injuring a number of people. A team from the World Health Organization was inside the hospital during the attack. The hospital premises were hit again this morning, reportedly leading to additional casualties. These attacks not only further degrade Gaza's already decimated healthcare system, but also further traumatize patients and medical staff at these facilities. Since October 2023, WHO has documented at least 686 attacks impacting healthcare in the Strip. Escalating military activities and increasing explosive ordnance contamination are heightening safety risks for civilians, including aid workers. OCHA stresses once again that civilians and healthcare facilities must always be protected. In North Gaza, 2 new displacement orders affecting 8 neighborhoods were issued since last night, following Palestinian rocket fire. In less than 2 months, since the 18th of March, more than 436,000 people are estimated to have been displaced to various areas of Gaza. Meanwhile, the prevention of the entry of all cargo, including aid to Gaza, has led to dwindling stocks in local markets and rising prices of the few supplies that remain available. Just to give you one example, during the first week of May in Gaza City, a single 25-kilogram bag of wheat flour was being sold for the equivalent of more than $415. This represents an increase of more than 3,000% compared with the last week of February. The blockade is also hampering the provision of hot meals in Gaza, with only about 250,000 individual meals now being provided each day through some 65 community kitchens. Compare this to the 25th of April, less than 3 weeks ago, when 180 community kitchens were producing nearly 1.1 million meals on a daily basis. Our humanitarian partners have prepositioned more than 171,000 metric tons of food in the region, which are ready for delivery as soon as the blockade on the entry of supplies is lifted. This amount is enough to sustain the entire population of about 2.1 million people for up to 4 months. The UN and our humanitarian partners stand ready to deliver at scale as soon as the crossings reopen for the entry of aid. We call on all member states with influence to ensure international law is respected and humanitarian operations are enabled without further delay. The UN Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, is concerned by the recent aggressive posture of the Israel Defense Forces, involving UNIFIL personnel and assets near the Blue Line. That includes yesterday's incident in which direct fire hit the perimeter of a UNIFIL position south of the village of Kfar Shuba. In yesterday's incident, peacekeepers observed 2 shots fired from the south of the Blue Line, with one of them hitting the UNIFIL base. This marks the first time a UNIFIL position has been directly hit since the 27th of November cessation of hostilities understanding. During that period, UNIFIL has observed at least 4 other incidents involving IDF fire near its position along the Blue Line. In recent days, UNIFIL has also observed other aggressive behavior by the IDF towards peacekeepers performing operational activities in accordance with Security Council Resolution 1701. UNIFIL protests all such behavior and continues to remind all sides of their responsibility to ensure the safety and security of UN personnel and property, and to respect the inviolability of UN assets and premises at all times. The UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Peterson, welcomed the statements by the U.S. President regarding the cessation of sanctions on Syria. This is in line with his continuous call for meaningful action on this front. Mr. Peterson said that sanctions relief is crucial to enabling the delivery of essential services, including health and education, reviving the Syrian economy, unlocking meaningful support from the region, and enabling many Syrians to contribute actively to a national effort to rebuild their country. And a new report from the International Organization for Migration shows that the lack of economic opportunities and essential services pose the greatest challenges for Syrians returning to their communities. IOM highlights the critical need for international support to help Syria recover. According to the report, many communities face unreliable access to electricity, clean water, and healthcare, while gaps in civil documentation hinder returnees from accessing essential services or claiming housing and land rights. IOM adds that livelihood opportunities are scarce as agricultural activity and local markets struggle to recover. At the same time, shelter reconstruction is slow, and unresolved property issues continue to stagnate long-term reintegration. There's more information online. The Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, is traveling to Luanda, Angola, later today to chair the annual regional retreat with UN resident coordinators from across the African region, with a focus on advancing sustainable development in these countries. The Deputy Secretary General will also meet with senior government officials to strengthen the UN-Angola partnership and discuss priority actions to support the Sustainable Development Goals. The Deputy Secretary General will return to New York on May 19th. From Somalia, our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tell us that torrential rains in the Banaadir region in the southeast of the country have triggered deadly floods impacting thousands of people. According to authorities, 9 people were killed and more than 24,000 were affected in the wake of devastating floods on the 9th of May in Banaadir. Key infrastructure was destroyed and shelters and displacement sites were swept away. The federal government is leading the response, and we, along with our partners, are supporting and delivering food, shelter items, hygiene kits, and cash. Our humanitarian colleagues noted that since mid-April, flash floods caused by heavy seasonal rains have claimed 17 lives and impacted more than 84,000 people across Somalia. Despite the heavy rains in most parts of the country, dry and hot conditions have persisted in parts of northern regions. OCHA says that the flooding comes at a time when severe funding cuts have forced our humanitarian partners to scale back or even close critical programs. The $1.4 billion Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan is only 11% funded so far, with $158 million received. Turning to Haiti, we and our partners continue to support thousands of people who fled violence in the Center Department in the first 2 weeks of April. More than 50,000 people who were uprooted by clashes in the department continue to live in informal sites or with host families, with limited access to essential services. Since the beginning of the crisis, UNICEF and the International Organization for Migration, together with our partners, have distributed health, hygiene supplies, blankets, and other essential supplies to more than 1,800 displaced families. The World Food Programme has supplied more than 80,000 hot meals, and our partners have delivered over 145,000 liters of clean water. Mobile clinics, supported by UNICEF and the World Health Organization, have provided more than 2,200 health consultations. WHO delivered 1.5 metric tons of medicine to local health facilities. Nearly 300 children have been screened for malnutrition, with dozens now receiving treatment. Psychosocial and recreational activities have reached more than 1,400 children. IOM teams are being deployed to 9 displacement sites to help improve the organization of services and support local authorities in managing site conditions. OCHA continues to support coordination efforts on the ground to help ensure that humanitarian action is aligned, needs-driven, and responsive. Despite these efforts, humanitarian needs remain high, particularly in areas where fighting and the presence of gangs limit humanitarian organizations' access. Additional support is urgently needed to sustain and expand the response. We have received just under 8% of the more than $900 million we've appealed for this year. And the Secretary General, in a statement, expressed his sadness at the passing of former Uruguayan President José Mujica and his condolences to his family, the government, and the people of Uruguay. The Secretary General said that President Mujica will be remembered not only for his steadfast commitment to social justice, equality, and solidarity, but also for the deeply human way in which he embodied those values. He led with humility, choosing simplicity over privilege, and reminded us through words and example that power should be exercised with responsibility and compassion. The full statement is online. That's it for me. Any questions before we go to our guest? Yes, Edie.
Thank you, Farhan. On the peacekeeping meeting in Berlin, you said there were 74 pledges. Will we be able to get details on those pledges and how they compare with past years?
Yes, we will. We'll have a press release that is just going to be approved shortly, and we'll share that with you once that's approved. Just to let you know, in terms of some of the details on the pledges, as far as I'm aware, 53 member states pledged uniformed capabilities, including 88 military and police units. 59 member states pledged specialized training on critical issues. 18 member states made pledges related to technological advancements and data-driven approaches. And 38 member states made pledges to further implement the Women, Peace, and Security agenda. So those are some of the details, but we'll have a full press release with more later.
Okay, and one other question. Will the Secretary General or any other UN official be in Istanbul tomorrow for the expected talks between Ukraine and Russia?
Well, the Secretary General will not be. He is in Berlin, and he will be heading from Berlin through a different stop to Baghdad. But if there is a presence at the talks when they happen, we'll let you know. Amelie?
Thanks, Farhan. On the hit on UNIFIL base, did I understand correctly in your statement that the 2 shots fired were coming from the IDF?
I believe I used a slightly different formulation of saying that,
That's why I ask.
Which is that they had 2 shots fired from south of the blue line.
Okay, and when you say shots, what do you mean by shots? Like, is that artillery? What is it?
I believe it's ammunition being fired. I don't know what specific type of ammunition, but ammunition was fired. Yes, Sinan.
Thank you, Farhan. Human Rights Watch said today, I'm quoting, Syrian National Army factions that fought the Assad government continue to detain, mistreat, and extort civilians in northern Syria. And these fighters are being integrated into Syria's armed forces with their commanders appointed to key government and military positions. And first, what Secretary General thinks about this, and second, if he has any reaction to those fighters taking such important positions in the Syrian National Army.
I believe that the decisions on integrating forces into the National Army should be taken, of course, by the Syrian officials, but they need to take care to make sure that they screen people to make sure that all basic human rights norms and standards are fully observed.
And if you don't mind, quick follow-up, what kind of accountability? I mean, basically, the Human Rights Watch asks for accountability. What kind of accountability can we say Secretary General expects?
Well, it's up to the Syrian authorities as they develop their institutions to make sure that they will have the appropriate institutions to ensure accountability, both for the current government, but also for any abuses committed in the past. Sure.
Sorry, Deji. So, what is the assessment since the UN has presence in Syria? What is the assessment of the level of control that Ashara's forces have over vast parts of the country and also over, armed people who attack, say, the Druze or the Alawites or even the Kurds?
Well, they're clearly still different groups governing different parts of the country, and you'll have seen the briefings provided by our special envoy, Geir Peterson, and I would just refer you to what he's been informing the Council. At the same time, we want to make sure that as the Syrian institutions are developed, that they are inclusive and protect all of Syria's communities, including the Alawites, Druze, and all minorities. Yes, Deji.
Yes, yesterday during the Security Council meeting, we all heard the statements from Mr. Fletcher as well as Ambassador Danu and other member states about the Israelis' humanitarian distribution plan. Obviously, UN rejected that plan. Can you explain a little bit more why UN think it violates the principle of humanitarian aid delivery?
I believe both the Secretary General and yesterday Mr. Fletcher went at length about the problems we see in the plan. Ultimately, they do not serve the core functions that we have in terms of making sure that all of those who need aid get aid. And again, we have some basic principles, which are the objectives of humanity, impartiality, independence, and neutrality, and the plan as constructed would not abide by those tenets and would essentially make receiving aid contingent upon different political goals, which is contrary to the nature of the humanitarian work we do.
But do you think the siege of Israel on Gaza, I mean the humanitarian aid delivery on Gaza, is against international law? Can you Can you say that?
What I would say is that it is contrary to international law, including
Is it
international
against it?
humanitarian law, to deny people, in this case, large numbers of people, of access to food.
So Israel is against international law, if I can put it that way.
This particular policy is what we've urged Israel to be in compliance with international humanitarian law and allow for access to humanitarian access to those who need our aid.
Does the Secretary General have anything to say about the latest development? It seems that Israel want to put what they call increase more military pressure on Hamas for the coming few days.
The Secretary General has long believed that that what we need is to reestablish a ceasefire. An escalation of the conflict will run contrary to what we're trying to achieve and will put civilians in even greater danger.
One last thing. Today, the Secretary General had a phone call with Pakistani Prime Minister. We saw the post from the Pakistani side. Anything you can share with us of what they talked, what the Secretary General said in that phone call?
Yes, I can tell you that the Secretary General received a telephone call from Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. The Secretary General welcomed the 10th of May ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan and commended both sides for taking steps to reduce tensions. The Secretary General and the Prime Minister exchanged views on possible next steps. The Secretary General reiterated the availability of his good offices. Gabriel.
About getting
Okay. Okay. Start again. We can only hear you now.
That's one of my questions about Berlin and more details on the pledges from that conference. So I'll go to my second question real quick. Yesterday, Tom Fletcher, in his briefing to the Security Council, said that the UN had met 12 times with Israeli authorities about their proposed aid modality because the UN wanted to find a way to make it work. I was a little struck that the UN had met 12 times with Israel. Is that sort of an indication that you guys were trying to find a way to make it work and that now that door is closed, or are there still conversations with the Israelis that you foresee in the near future about their proposal?
When it comes to the lives of civilian people, the door is never closed. We will continue to hold discussions in any effort to see whether something can be done. But Mr. Fletcher was very forthright about the fact that we made multiple efforts and we remain unable to support the plan as it exists. Lots of people. You first, and then Benno.
Thank you. Just following up on Syria, since the U.S. Have lifted the sanctions, I wonder if the Secretary General is in favor of lifting all sanctions and supporting Syria's government on his comeback.
Well, decisions on Security Council sanctions are to be made by the Security Council, but we've made it very clear from the perspective of the Secretary General and from Geir Peterson that what Syria needs right now is relief so that they can have an economy that works for the Syrian people. And so we are pressing all countries to see what can be done to relieve the economic pressure that has been placed on Syria. Benno.
Thank you, Farhan. Sorry, I was late. I had to cover your boss in Berlin. But I hope nobody asked that question. Is the Secretary General weighing going to Istanbul tomorrow?
Yes, it was asked. No, his next stop, his next big stop is Baghdad.
Okay.
Yes, in the back, and then Amelie, and then Linda. Yes.
Yesterday at yesterday's afternoon Security Council meeting, the U.S. representative mentioned the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Is it the same as the Israeli representative mentioned, like the Gaza aid distribution plan? Is it the same thing? And what's UN's stance on U.S. representatives' Gaza Humanitarian Foundation?
Yes, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a separate non-UN aid distribution mechanism that is being proposed, including by the U.S. and by Israel. We have made clear our problems with the sort of aid mechanism that's been proposed, and I'd refer you to the speech that was given by Tom Fletcher yesterday, where he laid out our concerns at length.
So is the UN on board with the U.S. Gaza Humanitarian Foundation or not?
No, we're not, and he explained why we were not. Amelie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Farhan. I'm sorry, but I still have a follow-up on that aid mechanism, because, I mean, as you said, the Secretary General and Tom Fletcher were quite clear on the principles, but we like a little bit of information about the specifics of the plan, because what are the specifics of the plan that infringe on the principles? What is proposed that is violating those principles? Could you try to explain to us a little bit more on the specifics? Thank you.
I mean, the general point to make on this is that what we have seen in terms of what was presented appears designed to further control and restrict supplies down to the last calorie and grain of flour. And it does not uphold the humanitarian principles of humanity, impartiality, independence, and neutrality. I believe Mr. Fletcher went at some lengths in terms of talking about how it would not provide aid to all of those who needed it, and it would make aid conditional on political objectives. And I just refer you again to his full remarks. Linda.
Thank you, Farhan. Apropos of what you had mentioned earlier and the discussion about Hamas, so yesterday, Mr. Fletcher said that Hamas should stop putting Palestinian civilians at risk during military operations, release the hostages, and so on. I was just wondering, at this point, what is the level of communication, or how does the UN, we know the UN communicates with Israel directly, how does the UN communicate its concerns to Hamas in Gaza?
We pass our messages along to the de facto authorities on the ground, but also, of course, in cases like this, when Mr. Fletcher wants to get his message out, he did it in his speech to the council, where he's speaking directly both to the Israeli side and to the Hamas side. And with that, let me turn to our guest.